Welcome to the Working Title Podcast, the podcast where we're always working on something different. My name is Seamus McMahon. Today I am joined by Joshua Powers. How you doing, bud?
Good, bro.
Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about a movie called The Lobster, which released a couple of years ago. And it's a very interesting movie.
It is, hence the title.
Yes.
When you texted me that title, I was like, The Lobster.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be a good movie. I mean, it's a bold move to name your movie The Lobster.
Yes.
And have it be a shit movie.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a very strange movie.
It's very abstract, very artsy, but very unique
artsy
in a lot of ways.
Yes. So what would you describe the movie as?
Holy
Because I described it to you as a dark comedy.
Yeah, I mean, it's really dark in a lot of ways. So a brief synopsis of it is Colin Ferrell. Chance, why don't you tell it?
Okay, so The Lobster is about like a future society that's kind of set...
Future dystopian society.
Yeah, where if you haven't partnered up and gotten married and had kids by a certain age, you're sent to this hotel to find somebody to partner up with.
Yeah.
And if you don't find anybody, you get turned into an animal and set
for
loose.
45 days. If you don't meet the person that you're gonna marry in 45 days, you get turned into a fucking animal.
Yeah, but it's of your choice, so you can choose anything. And so Colin Ferrell is single. Well, I think
Doesn't his wife leave him? That's like the first scene of the
Yeah.
movie, right? Is he's talking about, or he realizes his wife doesn't love him anymore.
Yeah, something like that. And so he gets sent to the hotel, and he has a dog with him, which turns out to be his brother.
Oh yeah, and
Right?
you don't realize that until later when the fucking that weird lady he's with kills the dog.
Which is, oh my
Which
God.
is really
it's
awful.
So bad. But, so he gets sent to the hotel because his wife leaves him. And there's just like twists and turns of him trying to find love.
They sent him? For some reason, I had the impression that he went on his own accord.
I think he went on his own accord.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but a lot of the other people went because they were sent there.
Okay.
Like it's a state sanctioned thing that if you're seen to be alone by yourself out in public,
Definitely some 1984 inspiration in that.
Oh,
for
definitely.
sure.
Yeah, definitely a weird like take on it.
Yeah.
Because 1984 was more about surveillance, and this is more about like
but just that I guess
population.
Like the relation to 1984 would be like the state is making you do something that's just egregious and not something that wouldn't happen in a free and open society,
Right.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, so this hotel is filled with a bunch of single people.
And they're all fucking weird.
Very
John C.
strange.
Reilly is really good in it. He's really weird.
Oh, that's right.
Really
he is in this
weird,
movie.
yeah.
He's really good.
He's really good. He's a great fucking actor. I like John C. Reilly a lot.
Yeah, he's really good.
For those of you who don't know John C. Reilly, he's the other half of Shake and Bake in Talladega Nights.
Yeah, he's a really good actor.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah,
he's really good. Really funny. He's actually probably one of the better characters in this movie.
Yeah, I would think
think
so. When I saw him in it, I was instantly like, oh yeah.
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 It's so good. But then there's like there's twists and turns throughout the entire movie of Colin Farrell like trying to make it with a bunch of different people, and he ends up with this one weird lady that's very, very dark.
She has no emotions.
Yeah.
She's like,
oh man.
She has no heart. Cool. That's how they describe her. She's totally heartless.
Yes, that's right. And he had to act heartless to get her
he
interested
acts
in
heartless so he could try to, not get turned into an animal. But then he wakes up one morning after a night of weird lovemaking. Mm-hmm. Weird. She's like telling him to do all kinds of weird shit.
Yeah.
Not weird shit like kinky wise, but just like he's on top of her and she's like saying really weird shit.
Yeah.
And so then they wake up the next day and he sees a pool of blood and the dog is murdered. She's like, I murdered your brother.
Mm-hmm. Because it was something where he had shown emotion towards the dog.
And
she didn't like that.
She didn't like that at all.
Yeah. So she kills the dog.
So she kills the dog and then it's kind of like as a test as well.
Yeah. And then at some point he decides to leave.
Yeah.
Which is...
But he didn't leave. He goes into the fucking woods.
Yes. Where there's other single people that have escaped from the hotel. And they're not animals. And so they're
hunted, though, by the people in the hotel.
Yeah. Which is the weirdest turn, I think.
Weird.
Because they set up the hunt very early on, where it's like
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
going into the woods to like hunt for food,
Yeah.
and then later on in the movie, it's like, oh no, you're not hunting for food, you're hunting single people and like killing them because they're single and living in the woods.
It's so creepy, bro.
Yeah,
It's so weird.
and that's where he meets. Her name always escapes me. What's that actress's name? Do you know her name?
I don't know.
But she's really good. She's married to James Bond. Daniel Craig.
Oh, okay.
That's-
Is
yeah.
she really?
Yeah, it's let me look it up. I can't
Does it
remember.
take place in Ireland?
It takes place in like
Really?
London or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Rachel Weisz. That's her
Rachel
name.
Weisz.
Yeah.
Is it Weiss?
Weisz.
Oh.
Yeah.
Weiss.
Weisz.
Weiss.
Yeah. She's really good in
Yeah,
this
she's
movie.
good. She's a beautiful girl and great actress.
Mm-hmm. And so they end up falling in love outside of the hotel.
Yeah.
And
at the singles
yeah,
place.
at the singles bar.
singles
Out in
bar,
the
which is
woods.
out in the woods.
Yeah.
Doesn't he kill a rabbit for her or something like that?
Yes. And it's very weird, like
So
looking
bizarre.
at the differences between the two groups, because the hotel is meant to be like bringing people together,
Yeah.
but the people living out in the forest,
They're not allowed to.
Yeah,
be
they're
with
not allowed to
anybody.
be
That's
with
like the
anybody.
weird rules that have been created. That
yeah, they're like, we always have to be single. We can't ever be in love with somebody for some reason.
yeah.
And then
But-
they break the rules together out in the woods, even though Colin Farrell was breaking the rules in the hotel and all this other
Yeah.
stuff.
There's a lot of also like there's some weird questions that I had for you about it that it didn't quite make sense to me. So they went to the city on a couple of occasions.
Yes.
How did they get to the city, and like how did they, get suits and nice clothes and stuff, and are you just free to come and go? Like to me, they didn't really in the movie they didn't really establish like that authoritarian element where it's like there's certain dangers if you try to go to the city or if you try to do this or that. They didn't really establish that, so it's like, well, are they just free to go at any time? That didn't really make sense to me.
They did a little bit. So I think the explanation as to how they got their like suits and clothing
Yeah.
was they stole them from the hotel. Because there's a whole
okay.
part where where there's the whole team and they get into the hotel to get stuff.
Yeah.
And to try to
they
get one
kill-
of his friends.
Okay, yeah, I remember. Actually, scratch that.
Yeah.
Scratch that, you're right.
And then from what I remember is they go to the city through like a bus system. They they run across the interstate basically
Yeah.
to get onto a bus to go to the mall in their nice clothes. And there's one time where a cop stops Colin Farrell and is like, "What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Are you all alone?" He's like,
And
"No,
then
no, my
then
wife."
The girl comes over.
Yeah,
they-
and they act like they're married, and I think that's a point where they're like, if you're single, the cops are gonna stop you and ask where your
Yeah,
partner
you're right,
is
you're
and stuff
right.
like that, and then they're gonna take you to the hotel.
so bizarre.
Yeah, it's a really good movie.
Yeah, it's unlike anything else I've ever seen. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those movies that really puts you in a mood, like
Yes.
kind of like The Shining. It just puts you in you go along for the ride, and it's just the score is really good.
Yeah.
Really great sound design, sound selection, and all the sounds are really really amplify the emotion, like the emotional scenes.
Yes.
So yeah, whoever scored it, kudos to you, buddy.
Yeah,
It's a great score.
I don't want to say that this is a fact, but I think
Hans Zimmer?
no, I think it was Johnny Greenwood.
Johnny Greenwood?
Yeah.
Is that the guitar player from Radiohead?
Yeah, he does a lot of film scores.
Nice.
I think he
I wasn't
worked
even
on
aware
this
of
one.
that.
He
I
might
was,
not have. I'm
Totally
not
joking.
entirely
I know
sure.
that Hans Zimmer would never score a movie that only cost $5 million to make.
Yeah, he could have. I don't know. But yeah,
I like it when you see good actors like John C. Reilly, Colin Farrell type quality actors doing smaller budget movies, like
right.
because they said the budget was only $5 million. That's amazing. That's wonderful that they're like, no, I really like the script. I'm gonna go commit to doing this for the art.
Yeah.
For it's not just all about the money right now. This
Yeah.
is a great script. This could be a cool piece of art. I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's a good thing. I think I'd like to see a lot more of that moving forward. Just really great films that don't have the huge budget or the huge, audience.
Right.
Like a superhero movie or something.
Yeah. Well, that's what A24 is doing. That studio I always talk about.
Yeah, I
love
that
them.
at the beginning. I was like, this is that studio.
Yeah. They do fantastic
What was the
movies.
other movie that we reviewed?
Hereditary.
They did Hereditary.
Yeah. They have a lot of new movies coming out this year.
Oh, no
and they
shit.
all look fantastic.
Yeah.
I think there's a new horror movie called Gretel and Hansel that's coming out that they're doing.
Going to be in theaters. We should see that.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. It's shot in 4:3, so it's usually widescreen is 16:9, but in theaters it's like 2.1:3 or something like that.
Yeah.
And 4:3 is like the square box.
Oh, okay.
That's what
that's what it's gonna look like in the theater.
I hope so, because that's what we just talked about it. The Hateful Eight was filmed in.
Oh, really?
That like square.
Oh, yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it looks really, really nice if you do it correctly.
I love, and I hope that more filmmakers moving forward decide to go back to making little decisions like that. Mm-hmm. Doing the whole movie like that, or having some scenes or the whole thing in black and white, or just things like that. I love it. I feel like just because we have red cams and such this fucking immaculate technology, it doesn't mean that you should always shoot everything on that.
Right.
Like, to me, there is something that looks so beautiful about movies that are shot on film.
Yeah.
It looks fucking amazing.
Yeah, and talking about that, The Lobster, I think, was shot... It was a couple years ago, but it was shot on, like, regular old-school cameras.
That's awesome.
It was digital, but it was, like...
Old school digital?
Yeah, kind of, like, not high quality,
yeah,
which gives it definitely a good feel to it.
In this era, looking at something that maybe isn't as high quality, it's kind of like the same thing as vinyl.
Right.
The same thing where you listen to it and you're like, oh yeah, it's got its flaws, but that's what makes it cool.
Yeah, it has a different feel to it.
Yeah, exactly.
It has like a warmth and a soul to it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way that shit that's shot on red cams looks, and really high end clarity, but it's just, it doesn't have as much soul as the old analog shit.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing that Pro Tools did to audio. Like, I mean, it's still great. Albums that are made on Pro Tools are still great, but there's something that cannot be recreated. Like,
oh, definitely not.
Analog is special.
Yeah, there's a different feel.
There's different, yeah.
It's a different way of recording.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
yeah.
I don't know. It's better.
Yeah, so I'm not shitting on it because I do use digital audio workstations.
Yeah. It's expensive to do tape.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Holy hell expensive.
Yeah, you have to be like at that Foo Fighters level these days to even.
Yeah. Well, that's what King Gizzard does.
Oh,
Bringing this to music is they record on tape.
That's beautiful.
Everything. It's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah. So, what would you give The Lobster? Let's talk about the ending, because the ending I think is the most polarizing. When I watched it, I was like, "What the fuck was that?" Yeah, that extends.
Oh,
And
all this time,
Yeah,
bro.
I just plugged in a couple days ago.
Oh,
It's the best.
That's
So-
the best, bro.
So what did you think of the ending? Because the ending's very strange.
Oh man.
Do you want me to explain the ending?
Yeah, I forgot
A little
it.
bit. So the ending, Colin Farrell and Rachel Weisz have escaped from both the hotel and like the group out in the forest, and they're wearing their nice clothes, and they go to like a diner, I guess, kind of like on the side of a road. And what was it? Colin Farrell tells Rachel Weisz to like go to the bathroom to poke her eyes out so she's blind.
Oh yeah. Did they do the surgery to make her blind? Yeah, remember that?
Yes, they
Yeah,
did.
That weird surgery
Yeah,
where she was
yeah.
bamboozled into
Becoming blind, and then no, that's right. She tells him, or they like make a pact to where they'll be blind together in the world, and he doesn't do it. And she he comes back to the table and she asks him, "Did you do it?" He's like, "There's a beat," and he goes, "Yeah, I did it." And she's like, "Let me feel your eyes," and she feels around on his face, and then he like walks away and leaves her there. But he says that he's going to get something or something like that, and then it just ends on her sitting there. So it's a very weird ending to a very weird movie.
Yeah.
that's all about love and connection.
But I like that though. I like that they would just end it on that.
Yeah.
So bizarre. There's no resolution. It's like,
yeah.
It's like ending a fucking song on a real dissonant note. Like the whole thing is beautiful, like and tragic all the way through, and then you just end it on a totally fucked up note.
Yeah. Oh man. It's just, it made me think for a week and a half about it. Like, what the hell did that even mean? Why did he do that? There's this whole like setup through the entire movie that they're like this perfect pair.
Yeah.
And then he just leaves.
Because the law of romantic comedies or the law of movies that are like that or have that sort of story is there's always a resolution.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel good. But they went in the opposite direction, which, Seamus, you know I've professed this many times since we started this podcast that I love that kind of shit.
And I mean, love it too.
There's part of me that's like wishes that would have been resolved. I would have liked to see that too, but I just love the boldness of the filmmaker to be like, yep, we're going against that.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it on a fucked up note like that.
Yeah, the better way of subverting your expectations than Star Wars did.
Yes, I like it. I just like going against the grain.
Yeah,
so much of the fucking same when in an era of sameness when it comes to cinema, I like what they did with this movie. Yeah. It was a very interesting movie. I'm so glad that I watched it.
I'm glad you watched it.
I am, bro.
I'm glad that it went to Netflix because for a long time it's an indie movie because it has that low budget.
It looks pretty good for $5 million though. I was surprised to read that on IMDb.
Yeah.
And at least 10 or 20.
It was oh man, it won some awards like Cannes or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And then it did like a short theater tour in like 12 cities. That was it. And I was like, I'm never going to get to see this.
Yeah.
So I was very happy when it went to Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a filmmaker, especially with on an indie, that's where you want shit to end up ultimately. That's where it's going to like get to the most eyes.
Yes. You know? Sometimes. It depends. Definitely word of mouth is how a lot of those indie movies spread.
I guarantee I went in I saw that on Netflix before you mentioned it, and I was like, Lobster. Get the fuck out of here. Oh, I would never watch that. Lobster? What the fuck is it about? Is he a fucking lobster? Or is he a lobster? What the fuck?
Yeah. It's definitely one of my favorite movies of the past like 10 years or something like that. So
it's good, bro. What would you give it on a 1 to 10 scale?
Oh, I would give it a 9.
A 9?
Yeah. Yeah, I give it a 9. Okay. I think it's definitely a really good movie. There's not a lot of flaws in it. I think the set dressing is really nice. The story's really good. There's definitely some parts of the story that's like you were saying, they don't explain too well how they did everything. There's just like, oh, there's this and then there's that, and they don't connect the dots.
Yeah.
So I think that's a detriment, but otherwise, it's a really fucking good movie. I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah. If you listen to this, go check it out, dude, just for the fuck of it.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. Dark comedy, super dry, but
you're not going to regret watching it. Yeah. Definitely not.
Yeah. What about you? What do you think?
I would give it an 8 for exactly the latter of the reasons you just gave. Just like we're talking about the couple of the holes that weren't quite explained. That's the only reason why I would give it an 8. But everything else, there's so many other great qualities to it. So, yeah, that's what I think.
That's perfect.
Motherfucking 8.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you watched it.
Yes.
Because it's I have a short list of my favorite movies, and this is really high up there. I'm glad
that I didn't even realize that was the case.
Well, thank you for listening to this podcast. If you want to, you can check out The Lobster on Netflix, or I think you can still buy it on DVD somewhere.
If you don't have Netflix in your living right now, get your fucking life.
Find somebody. Steal their password. But go ahead and watch it if you want to. It's a really, really good movie. Colin Ferrell, Rachel Weisz, John C. Reilly's in it. Yeah, go watch it. Thank you for listening. Have a good week until we talk to you next time. Bye.